We've got the images of the first suspected bomber Shariq in Mangaluru case. This, remember, in the blast case where there was an explosion in an auto rickshaw driver on the hospital bed with very clear injuries seen on the fingers, on the face, and while the treatment is currently on. We are being told by our sources that this suspect Shariq has sustained 40% burn injuries because he had that pressure cooker in his hand while he was travelling in that auto rickshaw on your screen, which is also, of course, now being investigated further if there are more evidence and remnants that can be taken into consideration. But importantly, we are being told that his family will be visiting the hospital to identify this young suspect. Around 12 p.m. the families are likely to come because that identification is important because remember, this man on your screen is not just a random individual. The investigators had held him under UAPA in 2020 because of a pro-Taliban graffiti that he had been a part of making in Mangaluru. So there was already a crime record against him. But now when this man, and we'll in a while show you the visual of when he got out from that auto rickshaw after the explosion, it was people who caught him, but they took him to hospital to get him treatment, only to realize later that this could have been a terror explosion plot, which were foiled. Now the auto rickshaw driver is not being seen as a suspect yet. He is being seen as a victim who was not aware about what was happening, because it was him who informed the police and said this man was carrying some item like a pressure cooker in his hand and that had exploded. Now thankfully the auto rickshaw driver, who's not being seen as a suspect for now, has survived, is being seen as an eyewitness. But look closely. The man on your screen, as you can see, Shariq, undergoing treatment, has suffered burn injuries, which clearly can be seen with marks on his face, on his upper body, and specifically the fingers. I want to quickly bring in India Today's Sagai Raj, who is in Mangaluru, who's also tracking the case closely. Sagai, why are we looking at the family's identification that is seen as important for this suspect? And clearly burn injuries also are being told by the police. Over to you, Sagai.
No, it is a part of a police protocol which should be followed by the police, where they have to identify the accused, because they cannot go with the kind of reports or with the kind of speculation, because so far Shariq is not in a position to give any kind of statement to the cops, and that is the reason the family members and relatives are summoned to identify and submit a report to the police, and subsequently police will take next course of action. And it is a part of police investigation, and it is a protocol which should be followed.
So, Guy, how is the investigation going on this case? We've been talking about Coimbatore and Mangaluru here. Both are being seen as terror cases. Is there a link at all? And when we look at this case, how will this suspect, who has survived, and survived in a way at least it can be discussed, debated, he can be interrogated about how did that explosion take place? Because what if he had died? Then there would have been absolutely no way for the police of the state to be able to find out what exactly went in this case. So how is the auto rickshaw driver and this passenger who had a pressure cooker in his hand and was travelling with that exploded is being looked at in this case?
Absolutely. Now you can see in the village, in the visuals, that the family members of Shariq had reached the Father Bullah's hospital here in Mangalore to identify him. And you can see in the visuals that police is escorting them, and the family members will try to identify if the person who is admitted in the hospital is Shariq or someone else. And talking about the question that you have asked, that yes, the police are trying to investigate and find out if there are similar kind of module which is being used in Coimbatore blast as well as the auto rickshaw blast which has happened in Mangalore. They are trying to ascertain whether the explosives were same, whether the timer was same, whether the circuit which was being used in both those modules are same, because everything is subject to investigation. FSL have already taken the samples from the spot, and probably once they finish their study on the samples, they will submit a report, and subsequently will get to know there was any kind of similar module which has been found in both of Coimbatore and Mangalore blast. As of now, we are at Father Muller's hospital here in Mangalore, and you can see in the visuals the family members of Shariq are here at the hospital, and they will try to identify it and give a report to the police whether the person who is injured in the
So guys, stay on with me. So these are some of the family members who've been brought into the hospital to identify this man. This man who's being seen as a prime suspect in an alleged bombing case that was foiled by mistake, because he was travelling with a pressure cooker that appears to have exploded in an auto rickshaw. But according to the investigators, he was likely taking it to some other location, but in time that could not foil. But this is a process that needs to be confirmed with evidence that the police will have to do. But the man you're looking at, the family will have to identify. And Sagai, if this is the prime suspect, Shariq, how is the police looking at a previous record that they have in their files about him? That this is not just a random person, this is not perhaps someone from a sleeper cell. There could be a previous incident that they're linking to this suspect. And why?
Absolutely, there is a history for Shariq. As you rightly pointed out, that there was a case of UAPA in 2020 where he had put out the graffiti in support of Lashkar-e-Toiba as well as ISIS. And following that, in the month of September, there were two terrorist suspects who were arrested from Shimoga district, where the explosives were found in their houses and they were trying to prepare bomb inside their houses. When police arrested them and investigated them, that's when they have admitted to the crime, and they had also said that Shariq was the person who was training them, and Shariq was absconding from that day onwards, and police were looking out for him. And after that, the police have found out that he was in Coimbatore and Ooty, and thereafter he had stayed in Mysore much before he had come to Mangalore to execute his plan of explosion. Now you can understand that the kind of history Shariq has, and that is the reason police suspect that he might be radicalized with one or the other organization. So far, none of the terror outfit have claimed responsibility of this particular explosion. Probably once the statement has been taken from Shariq, we'll get a clear picture which is the organization behind him and why he want to get into these kind of acts.